Joining me now for another edition of the Knicks Film School pregame show with the Knicks flying sky high at the moment. Winners of 5 straight and 11-2 since the OG Anunoby trade. They welcome in all the way from South Beach, losers of 5 straight and struggling to score 100 points unless they're getting blown out at home. And yet I'm still terrified of them and I'm not looking forward to this game whatsoever. Before the Knicks play the Miami Heat, you know what we have to do? We have to welcome our good friend from the Miami Heat beat. Always cute, but forever a hater. Mr. Giancarlo Navas. G, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Listen, I'm really excited that Jalen Brunson is starting in the All-Star game. I think that's great news. How did you guys feel when he got when you guys heard the news? What was the reaction in New York when you got the news that he was going to start next to Tyrese Haliburton?
You know, I felt about as good as an opponent against the Miami Heat in pick and roll at the moment. I knew that this was going to be a success no matter what.
You guys are angry, bro. Twitter's on fire. I saw somebody say you guys were too mad at Candace Parker to vote.
Yes, so that's what happened. Yes, not that like the way the national. It's actually Candace Parker's fault. Why? Because the national conversation around Jalen Brunson
Chestnut checkers
is that he's not a star. You know, Jalen Brunson's not as important or as famous as Dame Lillard, which is why, look, the whole thing is stupid. I don't care. He's going to be an all-star. We're going to look back in 10 years and not think, you know, Jalen Brunson, 4-time all-star starter. It's going to be however many all-stars he made. So regardless, we'll have an all-star conversation a little later because I'm curious if you think any of your players are all-stars because the Miami Heat are struggling.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe you can act as my therapist here because...
Your therapist? What about me?
Because you either need to tell me why I should still be afraid of the Heat and still respect them, and if my fears going into this game are justified, especially since they're getting Jaime Jaquez back on Saturday, or as we do a vibe check about the Miami Heat, Giancarlo Navas, are they as bad as they seem if you scroll through Heat Twitter for 5 minutes, and that everybody should be traded, everybody should be fired? Is the run over? Like, how are the vibes in Miami at the moment?
So I've been saying, I said when they won the 5 games straight, and I said on air, I said, I know that they're winning. I just don't feel they're as good as they were last year. And that, I think, felt weird to people because they had won more games in a row than they had in like years, right? They were playing really good basketball. They were crushing bad teams. And I actually compared them to the Dolphins because all the Dolphins did was crush bad teams and lose to anybody who was like above 500. And really, the Heat have no signature win this season, Andrew. They've lost to New York. They've lost to Boston twice. They've lost to Milwaukee twice. They've lost to the Clippers. They've lost to every contending team. Their best win may be Cleveland on the road when Cleveland was struggling, or like the Lakers on the road, but the Lakers like aren't a good team, right? So it's like their wins are not very good. They don't have a single win. They guess they beat Philly without Embiid on Christmas. That's like, okay, congratulations, like cool. Thank God, because I went to that game. If they had lost that game, that would have been the peak Joker moment. But listen, we have to look no further than the stars. And I've said time and time again, because everybody knows that I'm a Kyle Lowry guy, and Kyle Lowry was scapegoated and he was traded. And oh, what do you know? He wasn't the only issue on the team. And listen, Jimmy Butler shooting 55% at the rim. He's in the 17th percentile. That is a career low for him. Think about that. Mm-hmm. Bam has shot 10% on mid-range field goals the last 10 games. That's not enough. Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo together have a sub 500 record this season. I think they've won 4 games and they've lost like 7 or something. Their defense has no bite to it, Andrew. Their defense, which used to be this raving machine that would scare teams, that would run you off the line, that were swarming the pick and roll, is so, I'm going to use the S word. They're soft, bro. The help at the nail is just not impactful. I know that we love our analytics. Jimmy has a negative DPM, defensive player estimated plus minus, which is regarded by NBA front offices as like the best advanced metric. So Jimmy, again, for the first time in his career, has a negative DPM. So he's like, this analytic has him as a negative defender. And if eye test shows that that's correct, and their offense is anemic, Hawkins is going to help because he manufactures stuff in the half court. He pushes pace for them. He's really one of their few guys that will rebound and run off the board because nobody else is doing that. He operates really well out of the mid and low post and all that stuff. And Andrew, it just doesn't feel right. And it's mostly because I look at Jimmy and I'm like, this is not cruise control. I'm worried that this is how age starts to show. And you might turn it up in the playoffs, but if you're only 80% of who you are, you don't beat Milwaukee. You need to be that. And I'm not sure that he's going to get to that. He'll get better, but he won't get, I don't know if he'll get to where he needs to be on both ends of the floor. And that's where I'm at. And that's why I think this season feels way different than the others.
So I got to be honest, G, it's interesting that you start with Jimmy on this because listen, we're very fluent in dunks and threes here at Knicks Film School. We see the defensive EPM and how the Heat have 3 people with a positive defensive EPM. And you add in that Kevin Love not being there is like the leader on the Heat right now in overall EPM. And I was curious if this was going to be like when Jaime Jaquez comes back, when Kevin Love comes back, there's a different level to this team that'll fix some of the offense. But I had hinted about this last night on the post game that from talking to you privately, you said like there's legit concerns about Jimmy, that this is like 2020 LeBron in the sense that obviously not on the peak levels, but that like LeBron picked his spots, and that may be where Jimmy is now, that he's going to pick his spots. Now, to every Knicks fan that is terrified about this game, we wonder if one of those spots is going to be this Saturday against the Knicks. But is it really like I don't mean to follow up with just like, are you sure? But does this feel like you had said to me last night that they're as bad as they were last year, but now they don't have the hope, or Heat fans don't have the hope of a potential out of nowhere playoff run, you know?
I don't. And I think their process was way better last year because if you look at the numbers, their shot quality last year was some of the best in the league. And I don't care what you say, Max Strus is a good shooter. Mm-hmm. Gabe Vincent's a good shooter. Duncan Robinson's a good shooter. Tyler Hero's a good shooter. Those are guys that can knock down looks. And I don't like when anybody's like, those guys got hot in the playoffs. They regressed. They progressed to the mean. Because that season, Max was shooting like 20% at some point in the year. Yeah. That guy's not that bad a shooter. And they were getting good open looks. So all season, I'm like, well, Kyle also struggled. Kyle shot like low 30s all season. We all know that Kyle Lowry is not a bad shooter. He may be a streaky shooter, but Kyle Lowry is not an 82-game, 33% shooter. That's not who that guy is. We have enough of a sample. We've seen him do it in big moments to know. So it's like when those guys start to shoot well in the playoffs off a more aggressive Jimmy going downhill, drawing a little bit more help, getting them a little bit better of a pass, you're just like, yeah, as Heat fans, you're like, that makes sense because A, they're due, and B, their already good shot quality increased. Now, listen, whoever saw that game knows what I'm talking about. Somebody takes 2 dribbles into the paint. If they somehow beat their man, somebody sends help. You know, Boston was sending help at the nail, and they immediately they give it to whoever's at the top of the key. And then that's just one easy rotation, and that guy's covered. And you're not getting the probing outside driving kick stuff that they were getting last year. Caleb Martin's 3rd in the team in drives, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? Like, they're depending on that to sustain their offense. It's like Jimmy, Tyler, Jaquez, and him. And again, Jaquez is a really good player and everybody's excited and he's going to be here for a long time. But the fact that you're relying on like a rookie's drive and kick game that is so instrumental to what you do on offense, your other best player, Tyler Hero, cannot beat anybody off the dribble, doesn't get to the rim, doesn't get free throws. Jimmy and Bam are the only guys that are getting free throws. And Jimmy, I think last night, did he have 3 free throws or something like insane? And that was a good scoring night, and the time before he wasn't. So yeah, there are some indicators, Andrew, that I don't think are concerning. And again, this could all be elixed by Jimmy getting to a level that we did not think was capable of again. And maybe it's foolish to doubt him another time. I don't know, man. I don't see any indicator that that's the case. And every impact metric tells you we have reached the downward curve. And that's concerning because he's age 34 with Tom Thibodeau miles. You guys are quite familiar. I did think it was funny that OG's like, nah, man, I play for Nick Nurse. Like, yeah. I'm conditioned.
Tibbs light. Yeah, Tibbs said that too. How'd you know he could play these minutes? Because he played for Toronto last year. Yeah,
dude, Nick Nurse is a war criminal for some of his
warm up. Yeah, what are you talking about?
Crazy. Yes, this is light cardio. So that's what I'm feeling. That's what I'm concerned about. And the no signature wins, even last season, they'd show up against a good team and they put like a good team in their place and be like, don't you effing forget who we are. And this year, bro, Andrew, that was flat out embarrassing yesterday. Embarrassing. They were coming out of timeouts, and there were 2 out of timeout plays in particular. One ended in a Thomas Bryant corner 3, and I was like, what are we doing? The other ended in a shot clock violation. And I'm like, this is the most unserious team ever. And that was the good offensive night. So I have my worries, man. I have my worries.
So as far as your worries are concerned, and as far as the overall, I don't know if you echo the fan base and some of your listeners in the worries, but is the fix really just as simple as Jimmy gets better or Jimmy plays better? Or is there other things that schematically could be different? Because like there's some different personnel that the last time we talked about were like, they don't have Max Strus, they don't have Gabe Vincent, Tyler Hero's getting worked back into the fold. They didn't make the trade for Dame. And, now that you have Rozier, and the times I've watched the Heat, like I've been impressed by Jaquez, but are reinforcements on the way? Or is this just, if this is what it is, they're headed for the play-in again?
Okay. So on offense, let's start on offense.
Yeah, let's start there.
Second fewest field goal attempts at the rim, shot distribution at the rim. They take the second most mid-range jumpers, second to Phoenix. Now, Phoenix has Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin freaking Booker.
Yeah.
This team has Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero and Josh Richardson chucking them. Then we go to 3-point shooting, about middle of the pack. They're about like 14th or something in shot distribution. So the math that they take on offense is not mathing. They're also not good at the shots that they take a lot of. Right? They're middle of the pack they're poor at shots at the rim, right? So they're shooting as a team 59% at the rim, which is just horrible. From mid-range, they're again about the same, middle of the pack at about 44%. And their 3-point shooting, which was really good early in the season, has cooled off. They're shooting about 37, almost 38%, which is good. And they don't take enough of that. And it's partly because they can't generate more because of kind of the problems I told you. So I think the shot distribution tells you their biggest issue is rim pressure. They don't get to the free throw line enough. They don't put pressure on the rim. And when they don't put pressure on the rim, they don't manipulate help. They don't get help because what you want, because you need guys open. And how do you do that? You get teams in rotation, and they're not getting teams in rotation. They're not beating their men off the dribble. One of their most successful things that they ran when they were playing well was they'd run like pistol action with Kyle and Bam and Martin or whoever else. And they were getting early offense with Bam in the mid post, and they'd have people moving and stuff like that. That has been eliminated from their offense. I just don't understand why. It was successful. They got shooting. They got movement. Now you watch them play, and Rozier's running a pick and roll on one side. And I'm like, why is someone not setting a hammer screen on the weak side? Why are you not relocating to the corner? Why are you not moving? It's just, part of it is scheme, Andrew. Part of it is like they need to reinstitute these principles of off-ball movement, off screening, because they're not going to out-talent you. Like Jimmy is like an FU hard work kind of player. Jimmy's not going to wow you with talent. Bam and Tyler are probably the most quote-unquote talented guys, but they have their limitations on offense. You need everybody to buy in and to use everything that you have in the bag to be able to manufacture points. They're never going to be a great offense, but they certainly shouldn't be the 20th ranked offense. And a lot of that feels fixable. But if they're not getting to the rim, how do they do that? So the easiest, most realistic solution is Jimmy gets to the rim more. Jimmy goes downhill more. And that theoretically fixes a lot. They bring in Rozier. He's not been good through 2 games. Let's cut him some slack. You know, they just airdropped him into a disaster.
Yeah.
But you know, and he's not a good finisher at the rim either. You know, he's been very notoriously not good there. So they have some questions to answer, and I don't know what kind of personnel move that they can make. I think, and I've said this a lot, I think Tyler Hero is a very good basketball player. I just don't think Tyler Hero is good for this team. And I would explore what Hero, a pick, and Martin can get you. You know, because they're not going to be able to keep Caleb Martin past this year, pretty likely. Although they did save and shave a little bit off their second apron. They got under the second apron with the Lowry deal, so I think that's pretty huge for them going forward. But you know, that's really what it is on offense. And on defense, and I don't mean to ramble, they're running more drop now. They switched a lot versus Boston yesterday, which I thought was interesting, and they got absolutely shredded. And I think those guys were not sharp in their switching, because switching is very difficult, and Boston runs a lot of off-ball screens, a lot of on-ball screens. There's a lot of movement and action, and I think the guys were confused as to where they were. There was a play in particular where Duncan was confused as to where he was. Pritchard springs free baseline, gets a really wide-ass open shot when they're already feeling it and hot and moving. Everyone's touching the ball. That thing's zipping everywhere. So they got to clean up the defense. I do think moving back to switching makes more sense. I think the drop, I understand why they do it. I just don't think they have enough point of attack defenders to survive off a drop. They are like hovering around top 10. So I guess it's kind of worked, but I just think that you kind of eliminate your strength with Bam and what he can do as a switch defender. So they also foul very little, which, Andrew, I think is a bad sign for them, because to me, that tells me if you're not fouling a lot, you're not physical. And that's what Eric Spoelstra defenses are. They always at the top of the league in fouls. And to me, that's an indicator of like, we're dogs, we're physical, we're going to hit you hard. And they're not doing that. They're just not. So I don't think they're felt. And that's kind of like on both ends of the floor where my biggest concerns are.
So you just in detail laid out a lot of what's going on in Miami, and more specifically what's wrong in Miami at the moment. And look, I admittedly didn't watch a ton of the blowout against the Celtics because I was watching the blowout.
God, I wish that were me.
I was watching the blowout against the Nuggets instead, which was a positive viewing experience.
Must be nice. Wow, beating a good team. What's that like, Andrew?
I know, right? Well, so it's funny you're mentioning the statement wins. The Knicks for a while, and like they have gotten fat on the bad teams. They're 20-0 against teams under 500 this year, and they're 1-6.
Which is not a small feat. That's important to do too.
It's not, and what's funny is that it keeps fluctuating. I actually think it's back down to 19-0 because they beat the Lakers, who keep hovering around 500. So whenever the Lakers drop below 500,
funny.
It adds a win. And they lost to the Jazz. So whenever they go under 500, that adds a loss. So they're like fluctuating between one loss or one extra win
by the
based on what
Conference.
those two teams, but literally what the back half of the play-in is doing. Point is, since the OG trade, there was one right before the OG trade, there was a win against the Bucks on Christmas Day. Then since the OG trade, it's like a win against the Timberwolves, a win against the Sixers, a win against, obviously last night against the Nuggets.
Did Embiid play in that win?
Embiid played and like got his 30 points. And last night, Jokic played, had 31 and 11. And it was like, oh, so there's a curious nature to these statement wins of how reckless are we allowed to be with our evaluation of them. The point I'm going to is that while I was watching the Nuggets last night, I did watch the Heat play the Grizzlies on Wednesday. And this is where I noticed I actually don't hold it against the Heat losing to the Celtics. I think the most unstoppable thing I've seen this year is the Celtics starting five. And it was the more concerning win when I was texting like the KFS guys about like, oh, Miami was the Grizzlies game. And I know it was the first day of Rozier, and I do know how you feel about Kyle Lowry, but if you want to share for Knicks film school people,
miss my fat king.
Well, tell me about your Fat King that not only probably won't, like, not only is not going to play for the Heat, but may end up in Philly, your least favorite team in the league.
That's DEFCON 1 for me.
Talk me through your emotions. How are you going to be able to watch a Heat team fall to the play-in and potentially watch Joel Embiid and Kyle Lowry go play a title? So
I won't. I simply will log off.
We are folding Miami Heat beat is what's happening.
I hope that you guys and your audience understand me. That you know that I am someone who is guided by hate.
Yes.
I hate the Sixers more than I love my own family. I also hate the Knicks more than I love my own family. And if Lowry plays for either of those teams, it's a wrap for me, man. It's over. It's just over. And I'm praying that DeMar can wrangle him to Chicago. I'm just hoping. I'm hoping that Kyle just wants to be with a friend again. You know, but
I don't think it's in play.
I'm so scared. I'm so scared, dude.
I'm not even saying like trying to like report anything. I just like have some intel on this, and it seems like Philly's going to be the place.
It seems so. Like for your audience that's not like too familiar with me, Kyle Lowry is my favorite player. I mean, pretty much after Dwayne, you know, it's been Kyle. After Dwayne Wade retired, Kyle has been my favorite player, and more than Jimmy, more than I've loved him since he was in Toronto. If you're interested, I did a pod on it, and I tweeted an excerpt of why he's so important to me and how he really saved my love for the sport. So I love that guy a lot. And watching him, I don't think he was that bad in Miami. I think that he for sure wasn't doing what they needed, which is, you know, scoring, putting points on the board.
I was about to say, scoring points and like creating points for others too, right?
Hitting buckets. I actually do think he was creating for others. I don't think the playmaking was as traditional as I think people wanted. But I know that he's like top 10 in like secondary assists or something. I saw that the guys over at the LeBron's the stats guys. What are their? I want a basketball
B-ball index.
B-ball index. Thank you. Yeah. I wanted to credit Krishna and Tim and all the guys doing great work over there. But yeah, so like Kyle was a connector for this team, and I think they didn't need a connector. They needed like an actual player that was going to help raise their floor a little bit, because they didn't need an amplifier because there was nothing to amplify. You know, the volume was on 2, and they needed the volume at like 10, so then they can amplify it. And so I understand the move to get Rozier, because Rozier theoretically gives you some rim pressure, gives you some shooting, which I think they need a little bit more of. Gets a guy that gets you to the line, guy that can play pick and roll with Bam, a guy that's just gonna like take more than 3 shots a game. Who's younger, get you under the second apron as well, so you could potentially be in play for a bio guy. So it's kind of like theoretically a 2-for-1. You know, you split Kyle into a player and then another guy that you can bring later. So I understand why they did it. I just think that what they lose is Kyle's help defense was still very good. As a point of attack defender, he was very diminished. Obviously at 37, 38 years old, you know, that's going to happen. But, you know, again, he had his warts. I always say I'm not blind. I'm privy to reality. However, you know, again, his help defense was good. The connecting element was good. The ball movement, always moved the ball, always made sure that the ball found people. I think what he gave them in transition was important as well. I think as a rebounder, you know, they're going to miss him a lot. So sad, but, you know, I gotta truck through it. But man, if he ends up as a Sixer, so you don't think he's going to end up as a Knick?
I don't. The Villanova thing is in play, and like I will say that.
Yeah, I saw you tweet about that. I was like,
the first thought I had was like, oh, so a Villanova veteran is now a free agent. I wonder what that could mean. And the Nick Nurse of it all, the guy's from Philadelphia. I think the ceiling, as much as I hate to admit it,
the Nick Nurse thing helps. I got to be honest with you.
He's still close with Nick Nurse though. Like he won a title with Nick Nurse, so the chance to go try and win a title with him makes sense to me. Look, I'm still trying to calibrate whether the Knicks and the Sixers should be in the same conversation,
because they start
so
Maxey and
next to Maxey.
Yeah, they start Maxey and Melton, right?
Yeah. So can I just be honest? I wouldn't mess up that starting 5.
Melton's
been great next to Maxey.
He was not happy about coming off the bench.
They can't go to New York.
He can't. Yeah, who's the starter? It's Brunson and
DiVincenzo next to Brunson, and their starting 5 is like a plus 15 right now with Anunoby.
Yeah,
the Knicks need a backup point guard.
I just don't really see where he could start. I know that that's something that's important to him, and he was not happy about it. And I understand maybe he'll accept the bench role if he's behind a real point guard, but like I think he saw here they just opted to go with no point guard instead of him. I understand why that would get him mad.
Mm-hmm.
He's a persnickety guy.
Good word. So the guy that you did get, Terry Rozier, my only take on it was, like you said, they needed to boost the offense. You can see it a little bit on defense. He needs to come here and not look to facilitate. That's one thing I noticed. And this is, again, 2 days. You didn't really get to practice with the team, but 2 days, 2 games, and you're not really in the flow of an offense just yet. The thing I'm curious about, which is what I wanted to ask you, he's going to soak up a lot of usage. So who's sacrificing? And if it's Tyler Hero, how's that going to go over?
It's going to be a little bit of everybody. We always joke that Jimmy's probably going to willingly just be like, oh, thank God I have to do less.
Okay.
Not that he's doing a lot right now, but I think it'll come from everybody. I think guys are going to get their shots up. I think that they can stand to play a little faster. And by playing a little faster, you naturally, get people more raw possessions. I think you'd hope that they play faster, right? That's kind of the easy solution. And playing faster helps your offense, right? So we'll see. He's also like, I know he's like a point guard, but he's also kind of not a point guard. So like they're still kind of running without a point guard. I don't really think he and Hero are going to coexist well on the floor together. Memphis put him and Tyler in pick and roll every time down the floor at the end of that game. And Scottie Pippen Jr. was just absolutely cooking them, which is just a funny sentence. He's been cooked by 2 generations of that family.
Yeah.
And so kind of annoying, but he needs to be able to score. He needs to be able to get downhill, and it's the sacrifice it's gonna be a collective, and he's gonna have to sacrifice too. He's not gonna be a 20-point scorer here. There's 4 guys that want the ball. It's not, and he said that I believe the quote was, he's like, I know my days of putting up shots whenever I want are over, or something like that. I believe Lowe said it.
Hold on, but are they? Didn't they get him to come in and score?
Yeah, they did, but I mean, he's not going to lead the team in shooting or whatever.
No, of course not. But like, what I'm saying is, like,
he's not going to be a 20-point
to the
scorer.
trade. But could he be 19? Like, I looked at that trade and was like, okay, this is maybe irresponsible of me. The Miami Heat tried to trade for Dame Lillard this offseason, as you know, right? Didn't you just get like a guy averaging 24 a game? Like, doesn't this fill that role without having to give up the asset load? Like, what am I missing here? That
are you doing the Bill Simmons 80% of Hero?
Are we sure?
80% of Dame?
It's very much like I thought the trade was a home run, which is why I'm so terrified that it's going to break out against the Knicks. Now the Knicks have a different defense at the moment that I don't know if you're breaking out against them ever, but over time, I guess I'm a little more optimistic on the Rozier trade. That we will hear from the Miami Heat again as far as the offense is concerned, right?
I guess, but I mean, like I said, what you lose defensively, I think matters. What you lose as that connector matters. So I do think that they'll be better. They're better. They are 100% a better team theoretically with Rozier than Lowry, right? Like obviously he provides.
I agree with you, by the way. Theoretically, we got to see it, but I'm
also like I think their playoff equity. I think what Lowry gives them in playoff equity matters a lot. I think that a guy that makes winning plays, they don't beat the Bucks or the Knicks without him. I mean, I think you remember game one,
man. Those 4 steals that would to me was a Kyle Lowry game.
They were blocks, boy. They
blocks
were
and steals. He had a ton of stocks that day.
He did.
Very annoyed by Kyle Lowry in his minutes.
The dagger. Yes. I was in the building that day. That was the most fun. I don't think we've spoken since then. That was the first time I'd ever been in the Garden, and that was my first road playoff game. That was my first road basketball game I've ever been to. It was fun.
You've told me how much you enjoyed being at the game. By the way, don't worry.
I did. There were Heat fans in my section too who were listeners. So that was really cool. That was fun day.
I say all this. Go ahead.
It was big time. No, but I listen. I'm not going to torment your audience. They're a lot better than we are.
We moved on.
So. Our whole. The
Knicks are now. That's a distant memory. That's the thing we had to go through.
Exactly. Yeah. Now I'm so terrified of you guys. So you guys win. You win this round. But he was so big for them in that Buck series in particular. He made. There were so many big defensive plays he made in that game that they just. it's not like on offense that you can like replace like, okay, well, this guy's going to be able to shoot from this corner if this guy does this. Like, defense is not like that. And like the stuff he was doing on Holiday and he got steal on Giannis. He forced a huge turnover and an inbound in game 5, which gave Miami the ball. And then they won the game. You know what I mean? With like 8 seconds left or something. So it's like that stuff you're going to lose. And is Rozier going to do that? No. You got to hope that Rozier is going to provide for you on offense in a way that you don't need those plays. And that's kind of how you eliminate that. So, you know, it's a give and take. Obviously, Rozier is a better player at this point in his career, and he's going to help them scoring wise. Obviously, what did he have? 7 points on 3 for 10 shooting last night. That's hopefully not going to be the standard. And we'll see, you know, whether he breaks out against the Knicks or not. I don't know, but Miami needs to find a little bit of life sooner rather than later because your season's slipping away. And listen, these teams in front of them, man, New York, not messing around, right? Indiana, not messing around. Cleveland has really found something 8-2 in their last 10, right? I think you're just kind of out of play for the 3 seed, right? You're just trying to get to 4 or even 5-6 to avoid Boston in the first round. Although I doubt they care. And then you have Orlando on your heels that, well, I don't know, that team's kind of, that seems scary, bro.
I gotta be honest. If I'm slotting the Heat right now at 7, like you're hosting the Magic, you're the better team, you're the more experienced team.
I don't like that. The Magic scare me, bro. The Magic
scare
like
me too because they're not necessarily our boogeyman, but like you want to talk about not scoring. Like you're not gonna have to worry about them outscoring you. And I trust the Miami Heat in a close game. You know, that's I think the confidence I would give you there. The point I'm making is like if you're trying to just avoid Boston, then go play Miami, or go play Milwaukee, or go play Philadelphia as a 2-7.
For sure rather play Doc Rivers than.
I think we're all kind of. I mean, I thought the Knicks would have the advantage Tibbs over Griffin. Of course, I still think the Knicks have the advantage Tibbs over Doc, but that may be naive of me. The point being that I do think we'll hear from your boys again. I'm still terrified going into this game on Saturday.
But that's
I am
PTSD.
Curious how you. Of course it is. We've talked about this. They're the boogeyman. You're my boogeyman.
That's
Giancarlo.
Pure PTSD. See, I'm scared because I don't want to lose to you guys because I hate you guys and I don't want to lose. And I don't like losing to you and I don't want to deal. I don't want to live in a world where everybody has to make fun of us because that's what's going to happen. And I'm going to see the stupid video, the bing bong, all that stuff. Those guys in the streets. I'm going to live that over and over again, and it's going to be my hell.
Giancarlo, you know what? The only thing that saved the Black Friday experience of watching the Jets lose to the Dolphins and then watching the Knicks lose for 3 quarters to the Heat was that fourth quarter. Those 12 minutes where they came back against the Heat on that Friday night. I just forgot
about that game. Thank you.
You're welcome. We were so excited. But you realize how much of a grip the PTSD has on us. We made T-shirts after that game.
Did?
Okay.
After a regular season game?
We talked about this. I sent you the
right.
T-shirt.
Yes, I remember.
That stupid quote on your court. We turned it into our own. Yeah.
Alf made fun of it. It's like, are these people really doing regular season shirts? Alf, one of my co-hosts.
Because that's how we consider the Heat. Anytime we get to enjoy victory over them, we're going to enjoy it. Because you could be like, here's the scenario I painted on the post game last night. If the Heat came into this Saturday with Detroit's record, I'd be afraid of the Miami Heat.
Well, that's different because then you don't want to be the team to lose to your.
If they came in with Charlotte's record, the point is you could have been 0 and something, and I would be like, it's Jimmy Butler. I'm terrified. He's going to get 17 free throws.
You're like Bill Simmons of New York.
Maybe in the fact
I don't like what Bill's doing though. what Bill Simmons has done. Bill Simmons is the one that said Rozier is going to be 80% of Lillard, and now people are making fun of us like we said that.
Right,
they're like 80% of Lillard. Haha, you freaking jokers! And I'm like, we didn't even say that.
Well, you can take that up with Bill if you want to take it up with the sports guy. I personally, and look, you've painted a picture of a team that the Knicks should be able to beat on Saturday. And look, I'm curious what this Knicks defense is going to, if Jaime Hawkins coming back, I do think will help, but the Knicks are just not allowing 100 points to anybody. And if a team like the Heat, who has struggled to get to 100 points, you know, if the Knicks come out and hit their shots,
we'll be right
I think
at home,
should
baby.
be a win. You know,
we'll be right at home.
Yeah. So tell me your distant observations of the Knicks since the OG Anunoby trade. What are you thinking?
Oh, dude, hand in glove fit. Anunoby is, and I know that a lot of Knicks fans were like, I miss Quickly, I miss RJ Barrett. I think RJ Barrett's a bozo. And
is that how we sound?
Yeah, bro. I'm like, you guys were obsessed with RJ Barrett. And I was like, I've never seen a fan base so obsessed with like an okay player in my life. I think it's because
nothing. I was very critical at RJ towards the end.
Because like y'all drafted him and he was like a double-digit scorer that you drafted, and I'm like, that guy is like the most okay fringe, like, you know what I mean, like fringe starter, whatever. Now Raptor fans are doing it because he's Canadian, and I was like, have some self-respect, damn it. Quickly's nice. I like Quickly, and I thought that made a lot of sense for Toronto. But the RJ thing, I was like, that guy's just whatever, bro. Anunoby, that guy is really good, and us, so I'm like, I have like a little, my heart's in Toronto because of the Kyle stuff, and I've been a fan of the Raptors thing for a while. So, we had always said as Raptor people, like the second he goes to a big market, the depoy conversations are going to go like clockwork.
Second in odds of this morning.
So annoying. I'm like, we knew this.
In fairness, he's plus 239 in 13 games.
I know.
Like,
I've seen. He's
the impact
good.
Is insane. They're the number one offense since the trade.
Andrew,
defense.
I'm not gonna front, and I'm not gonna make fun of you guys. Like there's nothing, because I wanted that guy so bad that my co-host and I got on air when Masai was like 3 first-round picks or nothing, and I was like, do it, like do it, because I think that kind of player, I think there's 2 really valuable things in the league that are so difficult to get. Real legitimate shooting off the dribble, like 3-point shooting off the dribble. Like that's so valuable. And a 3-and-D, a real, not like a real 3-and-D switching 4 that can actually shoot and put the ball on the floor, right? That is such, I think every team that's won a title has like a guy like that. Aaron Gordon. You know what I mean? Like guys like that, Anunoby, Kawhi, although Kawhi is like the final form of that. I guess you could say Pascal
Siakam. But the Spurs, the early Spurs version that won, and obviously in 2014, you know that well. But like that's where we're going to with our comps for Anunoby, by the way. That he could be that.
Yeah, well, because like if you look at when guards kill you, guards are small. And if you put size and if you swarm guards, there's a way to control that. And it's why Bomani Jones once said something about Chris Paul that I've never forgotten. And he's like, have we ever stopped to wonder that the reason Chris Paul has never won is because a guy that small shouldn't be having the ball that long at the end of important games? And I was like, that is so true. Now, Steph breaks that math because of the first thing I said. That shooting off the dribble is insane, and the way he moves off ball and stuff. So, and he's a little bigger as well, and he has a bigger wingspan and stuff like that. But these elite guards, and there was even like a narrative for a very long time in the league before Steph started winning a lot that was like, oh, if your highest points per game scorer is a guard, that hasn't won a championship and I don't know how long or whatever. But power wings are what win titles, right? Now we're in this age of like these Godzilla centers of Jokic and Embiid and Giannis or whatever, but like Kawhi, LeBron, these Paul George, like these guys that are like 6'7" to 6'9", that defend, that go off the dribble, Kevin Durant, those kinds of guys are the most deadly scorers, and you have to contain them with another wing. And those wings, you can switch onto bigs and then send help to at least give you a chance. I mean, Jimmy's one of those guys too, right? Jimmy's in that category of power wing. So that's why I think a guy like Anunoby is so valuable, because he's going to be guarding the most deadly scorers. Tatum, right? And Embiid has a turnover problem, bro. Embiid has more, Embiid has more turnovers than assists in closeout games.
You want to know what's crazier about Embiid? Knicks fans are like legit annoyed with the Randle turnovers. I think they're coming from a good place because he's like not putting up a bad shot. He's looking for guys now, but like his turnover rate's really high. And then you go to the stats and it's like, oh, but Embiid turns the ball over more. And that's the guy we're apparently trading everything for this summer.
But
Embiid is better, but I agree with you. Like when you're that tall and you're putting the ball on the ground, you're going to turn the ball over more.
I don't know what Tibbs is going to do to defend Embiid if they play in a playoff series. But for example, Miami with their power wings, they front and they swarm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they front the post. And when that catch has to go, because when you front the post, now he has to go a little deeper into the baseline. That pass is going to go over. They have to go out to catch that in the baseline. When they go out to catch that, the front man recovers. That guy on the weak side corner is now going to come in to help, or the guy at the nail, and they are going to swarm and they're going to pin him at that baseline, and they're going to force him to make a pass that now Jimmy's playing free safety or whoever the Knicks are going to have, and they're going to try to pick that pass off. They're going to try to get a deflection or so that. That's what Anunoby provides you. That guy who can either be the one affecting the pass, can be the guy to swarm, or to be the guy to front, and then they come help with size. Kind of similarly what the Lakers are trying with Hachimura and AD against Jokic, right? You help with the size. Hachimura is a smaller guy, and then AD comes over and tries to bother him. So Anunoby unlocks so many elements of your defense. Anunoby was also the guy, the first, and I've said this on my show a ton, the first team that solved the Duncan Robinson, Bam Adebayo, DHO, that Andrew at one point was scoring 2 points per possession, like 2 points per play. 2 points per play. Every time they ran that, they got 2 points out of it. Insane. And the first team that solved that was the Nick Nurse Raptors, because they're like, hey, we're going to put Anunoby on Bam, and then we're going to switch that, and we're going to put another wing on Robinson, because Anunoby is going to be able to both guard Bam and guard Robinson, and it worked. And that's the kind of versatility that guy brings you. And that's why that's such a home run for them. Not even to mention that he's a good offensive player. Maybe not the best, but he's good. He can shoot. He can put the ball on the floor. But what he provides you on defense is just otherworldly.
Yeah, I want to give credit between Benji, one of our film guys yesterday, was pointing out how much he just attacked the DHOs last night against Jamal Murray and Jokic, and like the guy had 6 steals, 3 of which were just stripping Jokic in the same way that he was like guarding Murray and then switching and then able to get steals that way. Benji pointed it out. Our buddy up in Toronto, Esparahini, pointed it out. Prez over at the Strickland. The comp we made last night.
Did you just make S Italian?
What did I say? Barahini? Did I go full?
Yeah.
It may come with territory,
it's
unfortunately.
It's the New Yorker in you, my brother.
I was about to say, I might not be able to help it there. Point being, we compared him to Deion Sanders last night, that it's just like, all right, he's on the field, quarterbacks are throwing it over there. And I added the wrinkle, like, what if he was also Randy Moss or Wes Welker, where he's also like a really good elite offensive player that demands attention and demands,
I don't like giving credit to Patriots, so.
Okay, fine. Well, I know. So let's go Minnesota, Randy Moss.
Yeah.
There you go. Well,
are you allowed to compliment the Patriots in New York?
I can now, because they don't matter anymore. Like, now it's in the past. Now I'm referencing
I'm a
history.
Jags fan, and I don't even like them. I don't have to deal with them.
But,
I guess I did have to deal with
sucks.
them.
Also, not for nothing, Randy Moss never won anything with the Patriots, so I can reference that team all the time. Shout out to Eli Manning.
But you're not a Giants fan. But yeah, I guess
I'm not. But I claim that season as a win.
Yeah. No, it's really a great unifier. I mean, Eli unified New York in a way that I don't think anyone has since.
He could probably run for office with how much he unified New York that year. Jet fans were like, listen, any ill will I have for the Giants is gone. I need them to win this game so the Patriots are at 19-0.
That should
We're
be
off the rails a little bit.
Yeah.
We're off the rails a little bit. Point being, I do think that there is a bit of an overreaction from Knicks fans. I'm certainly there. And I want to ask you, how much am I allowed to overreact? Because I'm at the point of like any team that the Knicks go up against, it's like Tony Stark talking to Loki. Like, you may have an army, we have OG Anunoby. Like, you tell me how would you stack the Knicks up against the consensus contenders in the Eastern Conference?
Right now, I guess I have to see a little bit more of them on offense. I think on defense, obviously, like, they're going to be able to guard with the best of them on offense. So they are 9th in offense right now, behind New Orleans, Denver, and Philadelphia. On defense, they are 7th. They are 5th in net rating. Obviously, like, all the metrics check out. Brunson is obviously like a go-to bucket getter. I do think that like Randle and the turnovers, That's going to be like a thing that you got to watch, and I don't know, Andrew, how much like scoring they're going to get against elite defenses in the playoffs that are scheming for them. I think Brunson kind of showed you that, okay, like Miami threw everything in the kitchen sink at him and he manufactured bucket after bucket. He hit so many tough looks. Can Randle and one other guy give you that? That's something I don't know. And
that's literally the question. Yeah.
I think I'm not, but I do think that like if Brunson averages like 22 in a series, that might not be good enough. And that, you know what I mean? So they need to depend on him to I think punch a little bit above his weight. And I don't want to say that as like an insult. I think that there's like guys that like, I think Jimmy scoring 22 in a series is like a comfortable number for him, right? But I think Jimmy scoring 27, that's like, okay, I'm punching above what is comfortable for me. And I think depending on guys to do that, and it's what, listen, I'm not being a hypocrite either because I don't really like Miami counting on that on Butler. And I think like New York counting on that from a guy like Brunson, who's like obviously can do it. But then if he can't, where else are you getting production like scoring? Because I know when Miami doesn't have that, they look dead in the water. But can New York get enough from Randle and Anunoby? I think losing quickly, I think New York's probably need another ball handler, as you talked, like backup guard. Could use another wing. But that's kind of my question with them. And it's tough with these teams because I think last year, New York, that was like really the first year of that build, like, having a real playoff run in the spotlight. And that Cleveland series, I think you'd admit was weird. They just annihilated them. And then they play Miami and neither team looks comfortable the entire series. So it was kind of like tough to gauge, like, well, what's real here? Because you have those two extremes for both teams, really, because Miami looked great against Milwaukee, then goes to New York, who was, no offense, objectively a worse defense than the number one seed Milwaukee Bucks. And it's like, well, why can't they score now? Why is everything so difficult? Is this just the hate Super Bowl? So that would be my questions for New York. I think obviously, like, I think if New York doesn't get a home seed, that's a disappointing season for them at this point. I think they should try to get, they should. I think like between them and Indiana, I trust Indiana more, right? I guess.
But them at Cleveland. That's the one I'm struggling with. Do I have to?
I'd probably, if they played, I'd probably pick New York.
Okay. Can I get crazy about Milwaukee and not Boston?
I just think that those
Boston
teams are like
60 games.
So like Milwaukee's weird. I guess I just look at Milwaukee and Philadelphia as like a little vulnerable. I just don't know if New York has enough like scoring punch to get there. I think Milwaukee's. I got to see like what their defense looks like under Rivers, because their defense, I think Milwaukee's defense looked pretty spotty a lot of the time. So Milwaukee is 20th in defense right now. And again, those guys are getting older too. Like Lopez is getting older, Giannis, all that. Giannis is still fine, but like, they're not losing Holiday and replacing him with Dame is going to be tough. I don't think that's a horrible series for the Knicks. And I think that if you had to play one of the top three teams, I think that's the one you want. I can see a world where Brunson goes absolutely freaking insane. And Milwaukee just kind of like, if you think about it, man, think of the Bucks. They lose in 2019. They lose to Toronto. Van Vliet goes absolutely buck wild, right? In 2020, they lose to the Heat. Jimmy, Crowder, and Duncan went crazy in that series. They win in 21 off that fake COVID season that all the good teams had like 2 months off. The following year, they lose. Did they lose to Boston? That series.
Talking about Milwaukee?
Yeah, they lose to Boston.
So they win the title, and the next year they lose in 7, and Tatum has 46 in game 6.
They just have this, and then last year we know what happened. They just have a propensity, because of the way that they're constructed and the size that they play with, that they're so feast or famine. And I think that they just give up these huge series and performances more than other great teams. And I just think that, like, if you're a Knicks fan and you're like I can totally see Brunson averaging like 35 for a series because he's absolutely tormenting those guys in a drop. And would I bet on that? I don't know. Would it surprise me? Of course not. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the what you get by playing Milwaukee. And that's why that's an interesting series. I think Philly's tough. And I think they're gonna make another move. I'd imagine they're gonna make another move. They better. And obviously I just think Boston's just crushing everybody right now. So
Boston's the one team I'm not even flirting with. It's very much a health question for me.
I also think that matchup's bad because I think Boston can switch a lot against New York. And I think New York I think New York's going to be able to defend them well, but I do think that New York's going to have some soft spots on defense that Boston might be able to exploit. And I think Boston has a lot of athleticism as well. And Derek White's so annoying. I'm so sick of that guy.
I personally can't talk about any soft spots the Knicks have on defense at the moment. I need to see Boston play against this new version of the Knicks. During the old version.
And I don't ask this facetiously. Are you worried about Brunson getting targeted in pick and roll? Because that's the one thing where he's going to be doing so much on offense. I do think that I think the Knicks need they need another ball handler, but I think ideally you want a more reliable scorer than Randle, because I think that the responsibility to create and to manufacture offense on Brunson's a lot. And I don't think Brunson's this all defensive kind of guy. And I just think that you just get diminishing returns on the other end when you have to do so much on offense.
I think he can be picked on. And the thing that scared me about the Milwaukee games earlier in the year is that you couldn't hide Brunson on Beasley because Beasley could just shoot over him. It's very reminiscent of the Heat series last year where they put him on Duncan. Duncan, in game 5, brought the Heat back in that game because he was just shooting over him. And then you put him on Strus. Then Strus was just doing what he wanted against him. So I do agree that that's a concern. I do think Brunson's been, to whatever you want to say better is, he has been better this year. And even if it's just a strong body in the way, if it's a traffic cone, it's a traffic cone with concrete underneath it.
With a little oomph.
Right. And this is where the Anunoby thing changes things. They have surrounded him with better help defenders on defense that, can play free safety between DiVincenzo and between Anunoby, and then in lineups with Quentin Grimes and Josh Hart. And, the only time I'm really worried about Brunson, this is where I think the Knicks have kind of expertly built this team, is they know how weak of a defender he can be. So everybody else on the floor is an elite defender outside of Randle. And when Randle's on the floor is when you have your most amount of creation juice working for you.
So the other Brunson thing is, Brunson's shooting 52% at the rim. That's the 8th percentile. Obviously a career low by a lot.
Now go to threes.
No. Yeah. The threes I know, but obviously in the playoffs, you have to get to the basket, especially when you are going to be creating against these bigger teams, right? Because when you get bigs on you, you need to, you cannot, I guess you can try to live on a pull-up diet, but at the end of the day, you need to get to the basket and everything. So that's the one thing I look at with Brunson. And I think he's a gamer. So I imagine that gets, hopefully in the second half of the season for them, gets corrected a little bit, but it's something that I would monitor. Because
how you were talking about the regression Jimmy. For the regression for your Heat players
to the mean,
right? So exactly that they were regressing positively.
Yeah.
I think Brunson now in this world where Hartenstein was starting for Mitch because Mitchell Robinson is hurt, and the rim is not as clogged, the dunker spot is not always occupied. He's been able to his assist rate is up since the trade, and it's why that. January 1st, you just have to start from there and sort all the numbers because it's a different world that the Knicks live in between the Quickly Barrett combos and then and this is where I don't want to pile on RJ. I wish him well.
I'll pile on RJ.
You could do then this is G talking, not me, but I'll say it. He was a borderline liability at points with the Knicks because he couldn't space the floor. He was offensively just not a good fit. He wasn't hitting any of these mid-range twos or these shots at the rim. Now, the Knicks didn't run a ton, and he's really good in transition, but this is where he just wasn't a good fit next to Brunson and Randle. Anunoby is the perfect
I was always happy when he was on the floor. When I was Miami, I was oh, thank God, Brunson, Randle,
which was crazy because in the playoffs, we didn't think he was going to play a ton, and he started hitting shots for 2 weeks, which is why I was you kind of have to play
But Miami was able to score by putting him in actions, and they were so like for me, I'm like, oh, that's a win for them, But
to your question, I just have like zero concerns about Brunson scoring in the playoffs, like zero.
No, I don't really either. It's more everybody else, but I'm saying that like again, you're gonna have to ask him. You're like, okay, Jalen, you're gonna have to play the best basketball of your life to get us, to where we want to be. So I think if you're the Knicks, if you're on the whiteboard, you're like, okay, like realistically, I think the goal should be conference finals, right? It's like, okay, we got to the semis. I think we want to get one place further, and then we'll go from there. At that point, we're on house money or whatever. So it's like when you play those second round teams, whether it's Philadelphia, Boston, or Milwaukee, it's like, can they get that second and third guy to contribute enough? Because those other teams, okay, is Brunson going to be able to score toe to toe with Embiid? I don't know. Embiid's been the best scorer in the league this year. Maybe he has diminished in the playoffs, but let's say that he does. Well, who's gonna outscore Maxey and all those other guys? And if you're in Milwaukee, who's gonna outscore Dame? And not to distill basketball into something so reductive, but it's a team sport and there's more to it. But that's just what I would look at if I'm the Knicks, and I have to see it first. But obviously they're playing. Listen, as a hater, even I have to say, like, they're playing fantastic. They look good, and
yeah, it's why it all goes back to Randle. I know. Listen, we're glad
Randle's another bozo, bro. I don't like him.
I have regained a soft spot for Mr. Julius Randle. He has
such a I don't know, man. I don't really get Knicks fans because it's like he has an attitude problem. Doesn't he like antagonize the fan base all the time?
Not anymore. No. That was literally one game.
Not anymore. That doesn't change that it was happening.
But like when I say not anymore, it was literally one game. Like one game he did the thumbs down in 2022. Like we're 2 years removed from that. He did, is what I'm saying. He did. There's listen. I'm not going to turn this into like me trying to defend Julius Randle because I do admit that's the question. Like that is the question about the postseason. You want to talk about
his impact numbers are great. I mean, he's having another really good season.
Is he an all-star for you? I know you have two candidates in Jimmy and Bam, but if you had to pick 3 to 4 front court players, who else?
Probably. I liked Ernie Johnson's ballot. I forgot.
So he had Jaylen Brown, he had Randle, he had Bam, and he had Banchero.
Yeah, and
I don't get the Paolo thing, by the way.
So actually, no, the one I like was Kenny. Was it Ken? No, this is the West.
So Kenny didn't have Randle on.
Yeah, no, Kenny had Randle. And
no, it was Chuck and Shaq. Chuck and Shaq that didn't have Randle on.
Yeah, so they had Brunson for sure, Mitchell for sure, Maxey for sure, Brown for sure, Banchero for sure. Yeah, he's good. And he's had to do everything for them but
they don't do anything. Like you're being the best offensive player on a bad offensive team.
Yeah, but like they gave Derrick Rose an MVP for that. So it's like
and you admit that's wrong, right?
I do.
Because LeBron should have won. So we should get it
LeBron
wrong again?
Or Dwight.
So we should get it wrong again.
I don't think that's Banchero's fault, though. I think that if you...
I'm not saying it's his fault, but...
I think if you put Banchero...
Is this a projection selection that we think he's going to be good one day?
I think blaming him for the offense being bad is like not fair. I think
But you're still then crediting him for it potentially being anything. And I don't think... if you're going to credit Orlando with anything, it should be a defensive
Randle
player.
For sure over Banchero.
Easily for me.
I haven't.
Banchero has RJ Barrett efficiency this season.
I've been put on the spot a little bit, so
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Because I don't want to misspeak.
Knicks fans. Yeah,
I mean, Randle has like the better impact metrics. I mean, like,
I admit Randle's like I'm with people that like I don't know if I want to put a second Nick on the All-Star team, and the way he started the season,
which is I understand when people was like that's stupid, but like I do think that like people saying 4 Celtics was ridiculous.
If you put a third Celtic over a second Nick, I'd be like, you know what? The Celtics have been that good. I'd understand it. I don't think it should be Derek White. I would say Kristaps Porzingis.
It should be Porzingis, but...
Right. So, like, that's where I would go with it. I just don't get the Banchero thing, that we're just like... I've had to hear about RJ Barrett's efficiency and his impact stats his entire career. And I was never a defender of him, but, like, that's what we held against him. And in year 2, a guy with a sub-50 effective field goal percentage, Kyle Kuzma's points per shot attempt, on cleaning the glass and like a 0.5 EPM, and he's an all-star? Like, that's why I'm like, are we doing this too early for Paolo?
Yeah, I mean, 23, 7, 6, 23, 5, and 7. A lot of minutes. He's shooting 35% from 3. He's shooting 48% from 2. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Listen, I don't feel too strongly about it. So I mean, yeah, you can have that one.
Okay, I'll take it. I get the Knicks win game 6. There you go.
probably Brunson, Mitchell, Maxey, Bam, Brown. I'll give you Randle. How about we put both? Let's put Randle and Banchero.
Randle and Banchero, so they get the 2 wild card spots.
Yeah, I mean, does Trae Young deserve it? I don't know. I don't really think so. Hold on,
like 27 and 11 this year.
Usually what I like to look at as a tiebreaker is how does a team look when you're on and off the floor. So let's look at Paolo's.
I'll wait until you look for Banchero. Here, we'll do like live producing on the spot.
Okay,
I'll look up Trae Young. You look up Paolo Banchero. So we're both gonna look up everybody.
They're very good with Banchero off the floor. They're
right, like 11 points better, right? 9 per 100. There you go.
They're -3 with him on. Let's look at Trae Young. Let's go to Atlanta.
Trae is a -2.2, so it's like 9 points different, but still better with him off.
They're bad with him both on and off. The defense is somehow the same, which I think DeJounte Murray should be investigated for point shaving. And let's look at your beloved Julius Randle.
Randle, here we go.
Let's see if you're okay. So Randle is a +6 on and a +3 off. So that's good. The offense
is a positive total.
That's interesting. Their offense is 10 points better per 100 possessions with him on.
He's like a good offensive player. Like the issue with me for Randle has always been like ever since that first fake COVID year that you're talking about, right? Since then, you haven't been able to really survive without a second creator on the court. And because he stopped hitting all those long twos, he's not shooting 40% from 3 in open gyms anymore.
Is Banchero a fraud? Did I just learn that Banchero's a fraud?
We kind of
I'm not gonna lie, I've been
that here at Knicks Film School. I hate to say
Jimmy have a better case of Banchero? Wait a second.
I actually do think he does. And
Wait a second.
Which is why I don't think that it should be as consensus as the TNT guys did last night with Banchero. I'm not there yet.
I think for sure those other guys are. Should Derek White be an all-star over Banchero? My call?
I would put him there. I do think we're at the place with Banchero where we're projecting a bit, where we're saying in a couple years, all of these long twos that he's being forced to take in this offense, it's good experience because he's going to make them one day. Again, I didn't pick Kyle Kuzma on accident. They have identical points per shot attempts in the percentile.
That's interesting. Like I said, I've been so checked out on All-Star because I'm like, I guess Bam is going to get in. I don't think Jimmy should get in. I just think Jimmy's just, bro, I got to be honest with you. I just don't I don't like rewarding guys for not trying. And I just don't think that guy is
Jimmy.
Yeah. I just don't think he's gave it like a crap this year. And I forget I'm allowed to curse or not. So I haven't the whole show.
You're allowed.
He hasn't given a fuck all season, bro. And I'm like, if you don't give a fuck, you shouldn't get anything. And I don't like that because I think that like last year he was an all-star and he didn't get in because of the games played thing. He also didn't get in the fake COVID year. And I was like, bro, if we're going to do games played on a fucking COVID year, like that's ridiculous as well. So like he's been kind of fucked out of a couple all-star appearances. So it's like, if he gets in now, whatever, fine. Like you owe him one, but I would not put him. He's just not giving a shit this year. And I just don't think you should reward guys that don't give a shit. So
I think,
and I don't think he cares. And I think, to be honest, Andrew, he doesn't want to go. Didn't he say like, if I'm a reserve, I'm not going. I'm going to Argentina.
Yeah. I think what's fascinating about that is that's like if Knicks fans had to watch Jimmy Butler this season, like that's the thing that frustrates us the most with Randle is like the low effort possessions sometimes and the low effort games that you get.
You'd boo him.
Nick, he has been booed before. Yes.
Well, like you'd boo Jimmy. Miami doesn't boo.
Oh, you're saying we'd boo Jimmy? Yeah.
You know what's crazy? This city would never boo. We're not booers. We don't boo our own.
Really?
Yeah.
There were no boo birds last night?
No.
I tuned into to not hangover time, but the Heat beat last night. The
we
chat
was at an arena, like you know what I mean. Like we'll
so
make fun of them
as far
on
as
Twitter.
an arena, it would be anonymous.
Yeah. They're never. I've never. And listen. There's been some rough years. I mean, I was there when they won 15 games, and Pat Riley said he's going to fire himself. You know, I was there for that, and he did. One of my favorite quotes. Which, by the way, I believe the season before that, he traded Shaq after the same charity gala that he traded Lowry. That's the second time that man is working the phones at his charity gala and sends a dude away. What a mobster.
Get on Lowry for going to the charity gala, by the way.
Hey, he should get credit, man. I wouldn't have gone if I were him.
My last act with the Miami Heat is going to a charity gala where you were taking calls in order to move me to the Charlotte Hornets.
My goat.
Well, G, I'm glad we did that little exercise because I needed someone who I trust to also see what I see in Paolo.
Very cursory,
I think I'm
off
the
cuff opinion because again, I've really checked out of who's an all-star this year because it's Chuck putting Miles Turner so funny. I saw Nikai's.
That's
Nikai's Duncan's
on brand.
Yeah. No way he's watched any Miles Turner.
I want to put a second pacer on, but I'm surprised he didn't put Obi Toppin on. It's like he's leading in field goal percentage, you know, if you wanted to go that direction.
Obi Toppin as a pacer's weird, bro.
I've gotten used to it. And part of that's just watching and like the fact that he settled into the exact role that I thought he needed to be in, which is like a high efficiency backup power forward, which he's just been really good at.
Bro, if you were to go to like an AI and go to like Midjourney and put New Yorker, like I think that he would come up, you know?
Yeah.
And he grew up there, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, may end up in Brooklyn. Who knows? He's going to be a restricted free agent soon. So, anyway, G, going into this matchup on Saturday, I wish you the worst of luck. I wish you continued failure with the Miami Heat.
That SpongeBob meme when SpongeBob and Squidward are shaking each other for Employee of the Month, it's like, look at him with his dirty loser smile. And SpongeBob's like, I hate his guts.
What's the next line? I'm gonna make as soon as he lets go, I'm gonna make a run for
it. Yeah. Dude, that's us right now. Like
very much so. I maintain that I'm always going to be terrified of the Heat. And that is the last modicum of respect that I will have for this team that does seem to be at the end of a run. But obviously they're going to play each other twice again. And maybe by then they'll be up to the 3 seed because that's how afraid I am of a turnaround. So, we'll see what happens.
Having regular season success?
I have no idea what to expect. I just know this game was not easy for me. I had more confidence going into the Denver game than I did the Miami Heat.
Bet the under, baby. Bet the under.
You know how I said how reckless am I allowed to be about the East and the consensus contenders? The way I would rank my fear rankings is the Celtics won the Heat too.
That's so funny.
Yes. And I think there are Knicks fans that share my opinion.
Ty Windich of the Gyro Step, I'm in a group chat with him, and I somebody had said something, and I go, man, the Heat just stink this year, and he's like, ha, nice try, not falling for it. And I was like, bro, you too? He's like, nope, seen this before, not falling for it. And I go, I'm telling you, it's different. And he goes, nope, not falling for it.
I got to give a shout out. Our impact metric guru, XJ, has been like, the Heat are trash. Like
they're
every
bad,
impact
bro.
metric says they're a bad team. Like, stop being afraid of them. And Mensa, our other guy, and
I was not talking this way last year.
Nope.
I was not talking like this last year.
No, it wasn't until the playoffs that we got anything close to this.
But because I was like, nah, it'll get fixed. I'm not saying that this year.
Gee, I thought the last pod we did, we were saying goodbye for the summer, and we met up in the playoffs. That's how terrified I am of that.
Andrew, I planned a trip to Cape Cod in May with my friends.
Yeah,
because I was so resigned to them losing to Milwaukee. I paid for things.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, guys, can't make it. Sorry.
Yeah. Whoever
wants my spot, can go.
So that's the last question. Percentage points, scale of 1 to 100, that the Heat, I'm not going to say finals, that they can make the conference finals again.
Conference finals?
Yeah.
2%?
1 to 100.
3. I'll give 15%.
15. Okay.
That's just respect for Spo and Jimmy.
Okay.
Is
that consensus, or do you speak on the minority of like Heat fans?
I have no idea because you can't really tell what Heat fans actually think because they're just emotional. But everybody's mad. They all hate everybody. But everybody's complaining about Jimmy. I bet you if you start saying bad things about Jimmy, they will fucking come at you with fangs and pitchforks. So it's like it's hard to tell what they think. Yeah, only we can right now. Yeah. Only we can. So I can't tell how these people feel.
Okay. I have no idea if we're crossing this over. So I'm just going to say something and hope that Heat fans see this. You are never allowed to criticize Jimmy Butler or Eric Spoelstra. That's just like my personal opinion. I cannot, like, when I was seeing Patriots fans complaining about, I know they are, which is why on behalf of Knicks fans that have had to live through Derek Fisher and Jeff Hornacek and Isaiah Thomas and David Fizdale, like, I'm sorry. Yeah, like, we complain about Tibbs sometimes. Even then, we catch ourselves like, all right, best coach since Van Gundy.
Fizdale's a Heat legend. Okay?
I know, he's a Heat lifer. And you know what? I wish he had stayed in Miami because as a head coach, he's not that good. Okay.
You know that they want people like are really legitimately mad at Spo sometimes.
I know. And I think it's an awful job by Heat fans. That's
it's
the only
it's his worst season coaching in a very long time.
Is it? And it's his most expensive season. Like, he just got paid.
Yeah. Well, that extension's for later. So he's still on the previous contract right now.
So this is why he's getting it all out now. Like, you'll get what you paid for next year is what he's saying.
He does things that I don't understand. And I think part of it is placating ego and managing personalities, but it has been, I don't feel great about him. I think in the playoffs, that's what matters, and he'll adjust and lock in. I just think that, like I said, the implementing of the drop, they just did not look prepared to switch yesterday. I don't really care about rotations very much, but I just think they play way too much like Duncan, Love, Hero, or like Rozier, Hero, Love, or like, you know, stuff like lineups with 3 bad defenders. And I'm like, what do we do? You know, like, he's obsessed with Josh Richardson, and Josh Richardson's like straight up one of the worst defenders in the league this year. And, you know, I don't get it. You know, I don't know what, I don't see what he sees, you know, at all. I think the benching of Kyle for Jovic for the point guardless lineup was like, I don't know, kind of ridiculous. So there's like some stuff that I'm like, what do you mean by that? You know what I mean? Like, when he does stuff, and it's just not his best year. No, he's not winning any awards. Let's put it that way.
It's fine to criticize humans because humans are fallible.
And he's the GOAT. And if any of you Knick fans ever say a word about his beautiful Filipino head, I will come for you with a raging fire.
Here's where I am. I think he's allowed to have a year like this and not see anything. When I search the hashtag Fire Spo and it's not like a very dated tweet, I'm like, this is ridiculous. That's my stake on it. And so
yeah, dude,
you can criticize him and be frustrated with this year. Heat fans, like, you don't know. It's very much the meme from the Passion of the Christ set where it's like Jim Caviezel as Jesus with the crowns on his head and like in full makeup that and bloody, and Gibson complaining to him about something. Like, that's you complaining about your coach in front of any other.
Let me tell you something, Andrew. These fans, you know, we can close with this because I know we're going long. Yeah. These fans have had pretty much our whole life Pat Riley, Stan Van Gundy, and Eric Spoelstra coach. 2 Hall of Fame coaches and 1 elite coach, because Stan was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to know what it's like. You really don't. Now, I'm a Liverpool fan, and I don't know if you have anybody in your audience has seen the news. Jurgen Klopp, our legendary coach, is leaving. We're all devastated. It's like literally, I can't. It's like if Kerr in the middle of the Durant years said, yeah, I'm done. Right? Like somebody who brought your team back to prominence, who's like such a key face the players love. And now my football club is going to have to search for a manager that's not the best manager in the Prem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a scary proposition. Yes, I said he's the best. Pep Guardiola fans, in your face.
This is out of my favorite soccer coach is Ted Lasso. So sorry.
So shout out to Jurgen Klopp. You will never walk alone. My GOAT.
Yes. Well, also shout out to Eric Spoelstra, who I consider one of the GOATs. And it's why I go into this game cautiously optimistic, because one team is clearly playing well, but with respect because of how good I know the other team could be. And one thing I know is always good when the Knicks play the Miami Heat is that you and I get to talk for an extended period of time.
That's the best. That's the best part of it.
It's always the good thing that comes out of it. Before you get out of here, please let the fine folks know if they would like to, where they can check out you, the Miami Heat beat, and all your stuff.
Find me at GNavas103 on Twitter or on our main account at MIAHeatBeat. We're also on TikTok at Miami Heatbeat. That's a new thing. We're getting with the kids, baby. On Instagram, all that good stuff. Our twitch.tv/Miami Heatbeat if you want our post games. Listen, yesterday, I don't know if you guys, to give you a little taste of what we do, Tyler Hero had a ridiculous outfit and our chat was absolutely roasting him. One dude said he looked like DB Cooper. If you know, you know. And that's the kind of fun we have even after losses. So if you want to ever join and talk hoops and have fun with us, please step in.
Always a good time with the Miami Heat beat. G, as always, good to see you, my man.
Take care, my brother. Thank you.
And if we are crossing this over, take me out, Brass.
Take me out, Brass.